Presentation. Just give me a minute.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. To start with, it's a wonderful opportunity. I heard Professor Jagtap, wonderful talk, and he would be delighted if I show this slide if he is there. I would like to dedicate this presentation to my teacher, Professor S.H. Patil of Physics Department of Bombay IIT. Then it was Bombay IIT, now Mumbai IIT. And I would definitely talk about why I'm showing this specifically and dedicating this to his work, which he did with us students. I'm sure Professor Jagtap is doing a wonderful job, but this is some 30 years back what was done with us. So I'm going to cover about the some basic stuff so that people feel that I'm talking about assessment, the need of the assessment, the present practices which is happening. This is, of course, I'm going to talk based on my experience with colleges and a couple of universities in India and what I gather from all around. And then what are the possibilities? And of course, I'm going to share two wonderful examples. One, of course, involves Professor Patil's teaching with us. And I'm sure everybody will be happy to have heard this at the end. So I'm just putting some simple stuff. We are talking about basically education. As Professor Jagtap said, we are not here to create only physicists or Nobel laureates. So we need to actually think about what is the need for education, what are the objectives, how we achieve these objectives, and how do we provide these means to achieve these objectives. Quite a bit of this is already covered, and I don't think I can add anything to what Professor Jagtap said. So he has made my job easy. But since I have slides, I'll just quickly browse through. Primary education is mostly about the literacy. Secondary actually shapes personality and character of the students, which you can't do once they come to tertiary stage. And tertiary stage, you are only focusing more on specialized skills, expertise, and employability. And that's what is happening. So quite a bit of this is already done. But I'll tell you where the exception happens. And of course, as I said, these three stages are not exclusive. So there is always personality and character building happens at tertiary level also, at primary level also, and so on. This is, of course, a very interesting pyramid by Abraham Maslow. And he puts self-actualization as the topmost goal of education. Okay, we are catering to this need, physiological safety, love, esteem, self-actualization. And he was not an Indian. Otherwise, he would have known about the Indian rishis and he would put self-realization above self-actualization. And that is something most interesting. And the best teachers actually bring this self-realization to students. And I can just quote a short story. Once a lion cub got mixed up with the herd, and it believed that it was also one of those goat and sheeps in the herd. And once a lion attacked this herd, the cub also started running away, getting scared like all the other members in the herd. And then lion was surprised that being a lion cub, why should this cub run away? So he just held this cub by the neck and took it to the river and showed the reflection. And the next thing this cub did was roar like a lion. This is what a teacher would do, would make a student realize what they actually are. That's what the Indian tradition would do. Unfortunately, in India, the education happens between two extremes. So what you have heard from Professor Jagtap was the extreme, which most of us would want to happen everywhere. But that's probably hardly, it's less than 5% of the education system. Most of the system operates in colleges and universities, and where the realities are very different. Uh, anyway, so of course, this is what we do at school level mostly. But this also takes shape while students learn their subjects, including physics. That's the theory of multiple intelligence. I'm not going to go into that detail. Uh, so what is the need of assessment? Because I'm asked to talk more on assessment. An assessment, as Professor Jagtap said, cannot be separated from the process of education. And that's 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 the fact, actually. We can't separate it from the process of education. It remains interwoven, whether we wish or not. And in fact, most of the time, it is your assessment criteria which decides the goal of the education, which motivates people to strive during the process of education. So the need of assessment is basically to get a feedback through continuous and formative evaluation, so that a teacher knows how his student are keeping pace with his teaching. For a student to know where or she stands in the middle of the course, so that what efforts are required, what are the weaknesses and strength, and so on. And of course, there would be a summative. I mean, this is no more an exhaustive list. This is just a sample. Summative evaluation, of course, institution would like to know whether students have learned. Parents would like to know whether their children are learning. Students, of course, would like to know whether he's doing well and whether he has capability to go to the next level of learning. Uh, and of course, we are not doing well in this area, because I met one engineer from a prestigious university, and he was doing an engineering job with a meager salary of something like 15 or 20,000 rupees. And so I was a bit disturbed because I was introduced to him saying that he's one of the top student of the college, who had scored 75% or more marks in his exam in engineering examinations. So I told him that, why are you working for 15 or 20,000 rupees? Why don't you write GATE exam, go for master's course? And it was further disheartening to hear his reply. And he says, I'm not confident of appearing for GATE exam. Now, it's not that uh, he was not able to clear the GATE exam. We don't know, but he was not confident, which means he had no knowledge about his abilities, whether he has gained enough knowledge to be able to go through that exam, or he was not ready to take a step in that direction itself. Now, this is one of the prestigious university. I will definitely not name it, but this is the reality of our most of the university and colleges. And that is why, so I mean, of course, the simplest way of talking about formative and summative evaluation is that a cook or chef tasting food is formative evaluation, and a customer criticizing or appreciating food is a summative evaluation. And this is a well-known educationist, Paul Black says. Uh, and of course, our assessment practices will reflect the quality of education we impart. So students scoring 75% not confident tells you about the quality of education he has been made to go through, or the kind of teaching or the assessment which was done by his teachers or university. Uh, and that's basically what I would like to talk about. Now, what I'm going to show you is some of the examples from the physics, the kind of questions which are asked in board examinations or university examination. And of course, everybody knows that. And I mean, when I studied, we used to have an annual exam only once a year, and the entire syllabus were in the entire course used to be examined at the end of the year once only. So see, basic assumptions of kinetic theory of gases, 8 marks, describe this experiment. Even if a student understands but cannot describe, by writing a page worth of an essay would not be considered as a student who have learned physics. Now, see, look at the third question. I mean, it's extremely sorry. When I was a student, this is the question which was asked. Instead of actually giving a circuit and ask me to find current through a particular component, they're asking that you state theorem and discuss the rules of Thevenizing a given circuit. So a student who is actually able to calculate current through a component need not necessarily be able to describe how to Thevenize a given circuit, but he has imbibed. All right. So unfortunately, the assessment focuses only on a low level of competency and sometimes very impractical questions. You know, one of the question asked in one of the university examination for BSc physics to show that Maxwell's equations are invariant under Lorentz transformation. Now, this is of course a wonderful question. I would like my students to actually do this calculation and realize that they are indeed, because we always state that they are invariant, etc., etc. But unfortunately, this question was asked in an examination with the weightage given such that students hardly has 20 minutes to solve this problem. And definitely, most of the college students were never exposed to doing this calculation. So expecting them to do this in 20 minutes time, I was certain that people who asked this question were not even aware what the solution looked like. And so I definitely raised the objection and circulated the solution, which ran over some few pages. Uh, and they accepted that it was not the right question to have asked, but that tells you the sorry state of the whole examination system, which is working, and the way we are assessing students. Some of the worst example is, of course, Professor Jagtap has already given an example, what should be the best example. But, normally we do particle in a box in class. And in university exam, they would simply just vary the parameter of the box and then ask students to calculate everything. I mean, this is just a very low level of expectation that same thing students would do with different. And, looking at 2, 3 papers from the past, most of the students have, I was also surprised actually to see this with university postgraduate students, that they would have solution of 0 to a, minus a to a, minus a by 2 to a, all written in their notebook. They would memorize all of them because they know one of these is going to be there in the examination, which means no learning, no thinking. Uh, Better if I speak less about that part. Something like this, again, it's a similar example that you don't know, students are not given wave functions and they are asked to calculate uh, Stark effect for 9 different states. Very impractical kind of questions they ask. Uh, Even if they ask for a problem, it's hardly mostly plug-in problems. And the worst part of it is 100% option. That means even if a student has prepared only 50%, will be able to appear for the entire question paper. And out of that 50%, he or she is expected to score only 35% marks or 40% marks, which means 20% of what they've learned. And then you can imagine what happens. And one of the thing which I was told where I was teaching was that you be lenient on students, you see, because this is how they have been trained all through their life, and therefore you cannot expect anything more than this. Now I said, but look, I'm open. When I'm teaching the course, I'm asking students to do this. I'm supervising. I'm asking them to ask questions, do this work, assignments. If they don't do it, and then you expect me to lower down the criteria of expectations in the examination, that's unfair. And if at every stage, if we say that we are going to be lenient with students, this quality of students is going to be extremely poor. I mean, you would award them master's degree, but they would not know anything. But then the whole system operates like that. Uh, Now, the experimental courses which are taught in undergraduate labs, especially, uh, I mean, even postgraduate labs are not much different in universities, that you give, let's say, 10 or 20% weightage to the journal or 80-90% term and examination, which is experiment based on a lottery system. If a student has performed 20 experiments, on the day of the exam, he or she just pulls one paper and will do one experiment, and that experiment will decide 90% of what they would score in the exam. On that particular day, that particular experiment, which works fine, it doesn't work, and there is no uniformity in the level of difficulties that students encounter. Forget about innovations in the assessment of the experimental competency. It is just a routine doing the experiment. So no test of higher order thinking in experiment. I mean, those who are familiar with IAPT at all India level may be familiar with Professor Dharkar. And he used to give one very good example that if he asks students in experiment exam to make a tea, and then we assign marks for putting sugar, boiling water, adding milk, blah, 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 etc., etc. But if a student forgets to put tea in it, we just deduct, say, 10 or 20 marks, and 80 marks are given to students for doing the experiment, but the tea is actually never prepared. So this is the kind of assessment we do in experiment exam. In fact, the worst scenario, I'm talking about college and university level, uh, one of the institutions lab did not have instruments which were working. This I'm talking about postgraduate lab for MSc physics students. One of my friend and colleague went for as an examiner to this particular institute, and he was told that this is a sorry state of affair and their students have not actually performed the experiment. They have merely copied these experiments from their seniors journal, and probably seniors also had never performed because the state was continuing every year, and so he should be lenient and so on. So my friend said he just took Viva and gave them marks, making sure that they all score about 55-60% marks so that they're eligible for further net exam and so on. And I said that you are doing a cheating because that's not what you are supposed to do. Then he said, yeah, but we should be kind to students because it was not their fault. I said, yes, but what you have done is, because of this system will continue the same way year after years, you should have allowed students to fail and make everyone in the system realize that they cannot pull on without instruments in the lab. So, I mean, talking about very high goals is not the situation here. Here we are struggling with even the basic facilities, and the assessment is just going for a toss in this case. I mean, this is one special case, but it's not an exceptional case. Okay, the wrong assessment practices, I have seen teachers who evaluate in university exam. If it's a 12-mark question, they simply assign 6 to 9 marks. So there is no controversy. Nobody can challenge. If it looks neat and clean and tidy and systematically written without reading, you can award 9 marks. Otherwise, 6 marks. Even if one step is missing, okay, then students get 0 mark. I mean, this I have seen with children at school level, at college level also. Even the entire problem is done correct, but 1 or 2 steps were not performed because students were exceptionally brilliant. The teacher said, look, this is the marking scheme. You have not shown these steps. Therefore, we give 0. I mean, these are absolutely avoidable practice, but we do not have this kind of ethics of seeing. So we are actually, instead of doing justice to student, we are harming the student's potential and driving them into wrong direction of rote memorization. In fact, one of the student in a national institution, uh, I'm saying Indian Institute of XYZ, quantum mechanics, they were given one problem of calculating some probabilities, expectation values, etc., etc. The student's mistake was the normalization constant. The student made a mistake and got a wrong constant, and because of that it spilled into everything that student calculated. So everything else was fine, it was just a small addition or subtraction mistake. This whatever 8 or 10 marks problem in examination, student was given 0 marks. The student was in tears, told me that what to do. I said, this is not the correct way of teachers evaluation, but I can't do anything. It is your teacher, your institution. I am no way concerned. But you are completely demotivating students if you do assessment of this kind. Students not getting marks for normalization is already punished for that mistake. Rest of the technique used is correct. With the wrong normalization, constant also should be awarded properly, because students know the technique and has done things very well. But this is our assessment practice. And I mean, earlier examples I said is a sorry state in case of our schools and colleges, but this is in one of the national institutions. So although Professor Jagtap said something fantastic, but this also does happen at the top level. And the worst situation is give students a question bank and ask some questions from that for their assessment. Okay, and what is the credibility of our grades? Our university percentage and grades have no credibility, and that's why you need all these competitive exams. Uh, in fact, marks versus grade is a worst thing. People have translated it so horribly. In fact, I may be running out of time, so I would like to skip some of these issues. Most people don't know what the grade actually means statistically. When the CBSE came out some 10 years back with the system of introducing grades, and they said 90 plus is A plus, and 80 to 90 is A grade, and 70 to 80 is B plus, and so on. And one of the CBSE students says, how is this different from marks? When you say that you want to reduce importance of marks and give assign grades, then you are actually translating marks into grades. I had no answer. I mean, I just tried to defend, saying that, look, that this will be bunching, instead of a difference of 1 mark, now all the students scoring 10 marks, 91 to 100 are bunched into one grade. But that was just a lame answer. That doesn't justify the grading system. Uh, I know a student. I mean, institutions in which faculties want to assign more A grades, and therefore they do some adjustment of assigning marks. I have also actually taught a couple of courses in one of the national institutions, and I know the lacuna about how these grades are being manipulated or adjusted. And so that definitely is not good sign. Okay, sometimes you reduce marks of the topmost students so that the students below that student, suppose the top student scores 90 plus and the other practices which are very standard. It is not necessarily only in India, all over the universities internationally, professors do these kind of things. So in that sense, many times these assessment practices are illusion. I would not say that it's definitely very bad. They're not necessarily very bad. It is just that exceptional students, uh, one exceptional student should not affect the performance of the other students. Uh, so the grading in our Indian universities and colleges, in national institutions like IITs and IXers, or in universities abroad, I'm saying American, but abroad, are completely different things. And college and university grading system has to definitely uh, needs a revamp, because some of the things which I know from inside, I don't want to spell out, but it's definitely not good. Uh, but I would like to say, uh, this is one thing, that if our assessment actually do not reflect and address students' learning and progress, then those assessment is meaningless. So we are just giving false degrees to people, which does not reflect truly what they have learned or what they are capable. But I want to say this, because I would definitely go to this. What would our rishis do in Gurukul system, and what can we do? Okay, so suppose if we say A is excellent, most creative, very intelligent student, B is done well, has capability, and go for higher courses in the same field. C is acceptable, but would be required a remedial training, because if that course becomes the requisite for the next level of courses, that's not acceptable performance, but it's acceptable for clearing the course. D is a student may have to learn further or repeat the course. Now, where does marks figure out here? Nothing. I mean, this is just a criteria, and a teacher is the best judge to decide whether students should be. So there is no need for that. I mean, what I can tell you is that in American university, which I have experienced, many times professor give A grade to students who have not been doing well throughout the semester, but towards the end has performed extremely well, because that actually symbolizes that student has acquired whatever he or she has to acquire. And therefore, that's the correct process of awarding grades, not straight away translating marks into grades. But this needs to be thought about, talked about, and implemented in a right spirit. One of the problem with our grading system is why it lacks credibility is because there is a trust deficiency between teachers and students, between teachers and the institution managements, or between parents and the institution and parents and teachers. And this, what I'm talking about, can be generalized almost from school level to university and postgraduate level. But now I'm coming to something which is definitely what I should be talking about. In late 90s, Professor Patil wrote an article in Times of India, which had a title called Experiment in Trust, and where he described what he was doing. And I tell you, as a first-hand experienced person, as a student of his course, uh, he used to give us two exams during the semester. 50 marks used to be in semester, mid semester exam, 50 marks used to be final exam. Uh, he taught us for 2 semesters. So invariably, there would be about 5 problems he would give. But there is no time restriction of 2.5 or 3 hours or something. He would just leave us in the classroom and say, okay, now you. His exams used to be open notebook exams, so we can carry our class notebook to refer to in case if we do not remember something. Uh, but we could spend time thinking about the problem, deciding, and in between, of course, we can go for tea, dinner, etc. And he would not be there. It was be completely unsupervised exam, and the it was an understanding between students and teacher. No student will copy, and whatever I know about through personal interaction with him
I'm
later
sorry
on.
for interrupting you, sir.
Sorry.
Can you wind up, sir? Because we are running late.
I'll need five more minutes to say what I had to say.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Uh, because this is something most important which everybody should know. Because I've told whatever is the existing practice, but I want to say something which is exceptional.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah. Uh, and so we had ample time to write the exam. And this is the later discussions with him. And he said that, look, I give more time to students because some students are slow. Which I agree, because I would fall into that category. And had it been 2.5 or 3 hours exam, I would not definitely have solved these problems. But because he gave us ample time to solve the problem, and his criteria was that, look, in real life, people do take time to address the problem and solve it. So there is a capability, but some people need more time, or sometimes you need more time. And so it definitely did justice. But this was not all. uh, this examination of his were actually supported by the way he taught us. We used to have one tutorial session in a week. We used to meet at evening 5 o'clock. It was supposed to be 1 hour session, invariably went on for 2 to 2.5 hours, where he really made us go through all the problems and solve them, of course, with his guidance. But that was the process through which we learned. And I went to do my MSc for 2 years after doing undergraduation in a college where we were never exposed to doing anything. And therefore, it became quite a difficult situation in the beginning for us. But through this process, he really changed. He transformed us into completely different people, different capabilities. And I'm sure the generation of students, as I know, as I'm aware, has really have a lot of respect for what he did to them through his method of teaching and through his method of examination and his tutorial sessions. So this is something which is lacking in our undergraduate and postgraduate in our colleges and universities. So his tutorial sessions in open notebook and unsupervised exams and no time limit. And there's a second experiment. This is what we did with the guidance of Professor H.C. Pradhan. You all must have heard him yesterday as a chief guest. In colleges these days, we get students to do undergraduate physics who are probably most demotivated, have not performed absolutely even to satisfaction of their own in 12th standard, and somehow landed up doing BSc and probably come for physics many times like that. Uh, and I found personally that those students were really intelligent. It's just that physics would turn them off. So I used to conduct a 1 month workshop. That's where Professor Pradhan came to my rescue, and he really offered his guidance. And it was a great to have his guidance. We developed an instructional strategy, and we made students go through the physics problems for almost a period of 1 month. Whole day they would sit there, and we would assign them some problem sheets, and they would work on those problems to cover quite a broad area of physics, and we would allow them to refer to books, discuss everything, but solutions were not provided to them. They were made to solve them. And all I must say is that it really transformed their perception about their own self. I mean, I had a student who had flunked in first year, but eventually went on to do physics till final year of his undergraduate studies, and is doing extremely well. And many of those things he shared with me were really eye-opening. And one of the comment, it is not just one student, so many students have gone through this workshop, that sir, this workshop, this problem solving which you taught us, made made us change our belief about our own self, that we always thought physics was difficult, we can't do this, we can't do that. And after this 1 month of exposure, it really changed our belief, and that's why we are doing so well in our life now. uh, whether they are pursuing physics, or whether they have diverted into management or software, etc. So this was our experience. And basically what I wanted to emphasize was the importance of using problems as a tools of learning as well as assessment is something which is lacking in our undergraduate curriculum. And what Professor Patil could do in a system which allowed him to perform this experiment are not allowed in a normal college and universities. And what we did had no official relevance, but it definitely helps students transform themselves. And this can be definitely incorporated into our regular curriculum. Okay, I think the organizers are becoming impatient, so I would like to end things here. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for this very informative lecture. There is one question in the chat box asked by Mr. Anand. The student losing point on quantum mechanics normalization question is unethical, but is it not a standard thing to assign partial credits for subsequent correct answer?
I don't know. If you ask me, I would assign it. It depends on the teacher, but it is not followed as a standard practice. Considering I'm saying that this happened in one of the national, one of these I dash 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 whatever institutions. I would say that it must be happening anywhere, because I know it happens at school level, it happens at college levels. May not be all the teachers, but they are not actually very clear about our assessment practices, and whether we should do justice to students or not. It is just that it's happening, it's been happening, and nobody really bothers about it.